Would you believe that the story of human evolution, the one taught in classrooms, printed in books, and etched into museum walls, might be missing an entire chapter? Not a minor detail, but a monumental page, one so controversial, so disruptive, that it was quietly filed away like a forbidden scroll, hidden from mainstream eyes. A chapter that could redefine what it means to be human. Because what if we weren't the first? What if another intelligent species walked this earth long before us? Not apes, not early humans, but something else. Something that left behind no textbooks, but perhaps left traces in stone, in myth, in silence. Imagine this. Beneath layers of dirt and time, a mystery slumbers older than pyramids, older than Homo sapiens, a trail of impossible ruins, anomalies in DNA, tools that shouldn't exist, footprints embedded in stone, from millions of years ago. We were taught that our story began around 300,000 years ago in Africa. But what if that's only the final season of a much older saga, a lost prequel, scrubbed clean by cataclysm, memory, and time? Could it be that we are the survivors of someone else's extinction? Across this video, we'll uncover stunning clues from forbidden fossils to vanished civilizations, from ancient technology to the limits of evolutionary science itself. Secrets that challenge everything we thought we knew about the human journey. Step into this hidden corridor of history, a place where science meets mystery, where archaeology whispers secrets too bold to publish, where forgotten knowledge waits just beneath the surface. In this cinematic journey, we'll explore a strange artifact found in coal dated over 300 million years old, advanced human-like skulls discovered in strata far too ancient, mysterious genetic gaps that still baffle evolutionary biology, and the haunting possibility that Homo sapiens are not alone in the tree of intelligence. This is not just a video, it's a descent into the unknown, a map of questions written in stone, in code, and in myth. This is the forbidden chapter of human evolution, and once you open it, you may never see humanity the same way again. So let's begin. In 1862, deep in the quiet heart of Illinois, a routine coal mining operation stumbled upon something impossible. Lodged within a lump of coal, believed to be over 300 million years old, was a small, perfectly formed iron pot, not rusted, not warped. A pot shaped, symmetrical, unmistakably artificial. The workers were stunned. Scientists were baffled. How could a man-made object be inside a coal seam laid down hundreds of millions of years before humans supposedly existed? The pot was dismissed, of course. Contamination, they said. A mistake. But this was only the beginning. Now imagine this. In 1966, in a Utah mine, miners found a human-like footprint sandaled, with visible stitching embedded in 600-million-year-old shale. That's not just pre-human, it's pre-life as we know it. Before fish, before ferns, before anything with a backbone. And then there's the metallic sphere from South Africa, found in Precambrian rock, 2.8 billion years old. Balanced grooves circle it with unnatural precision. Geologists say it's not man-made, but they can't explain its symmetry or purpose. These aren't legends whispered over campfires. They are documented anomalies, often buried deep in archives, shrouded in doubt, dismissed with discomfort. Why? Because they don't fit. They don't fit the timeline. They don't fit the theory. They don't fit what we believe about ourselves. But what if the story isn't wrong? Just incomplete? Step into another scene. Paluxy Riverbed, Texas. Fossilized dinosaur tracks, but beside them, barefoot human footprints. Some larger than modern human feet, running alongside giant reptilian claws. Did time bend? Or did someone walk the earth before the timeline was even drawn? He warned us, one archaeologist reportedly said, looking at an uncovered layer beneath a Mesozoic fossil bed. Never dig past the fourth layer. But they did, and what they found defied every textbook. Then came the Nampa figurine discovered in Idaho, 1889. A small, exquisitely carved human-like doll pulled up from a well-boring shaft at a depth of over 90 meters deep within Miocene-era rock. That's over 2 million years too early for any such artifact to exist. Even more mysterious, in 1999 in Siberia's Ural Mountains, Russian geologists unearthed tiny, ultra-precise metallic coils, some measuring less than a millimeter. Analysis revealed they were made of tungsten, a metal with an extremely high melting point, embedded in layers estimated to be over 100,000 years old. Who made them? And why? And what about the Dropa stones? Circular stone discs discovered in the Bayanhar Mountains of China in the 1930s. Each disc carries a spiral groove filled with microscopic, hieroglyph-like characters, telling the story of a race that came from the stars and crash-landed on Earth over 12,000 years ago. Myth, misinterpretation, or a hidden history encoded in stone? These aren't isolated incidents. Over the last century, hundreds of such anomalies have been found and quietly forgotten. Tools embedded in ancient rock, carvings on sealed cave walls, complex maps etched in stone long before modern civilization could have drawn them. You descend into a silent cave. The air is damp, cool, your torchlight flickers, and there it is, a carving of the solar system complete with Uranus, Neptune, and even Pluto, made thousands of years before telescopes. You reach out, the stone is smooth, the symbols are precise, and the silence, deafening. Something is missing. What on earth is going on here? Could these artifacts be hoaxes, misidentifications, or are they whispers from a chapter of human history that we're not ready to read? What happens next will challenge not only archaeology, but the very foundation of who we believe we are. So, what do scientists say? Let's start with the basics. According to mainstream evolutionary biology, modern Homo sapiens emerged around 300,000 years ago in Africa. This theory is supported by fossil records, genetic studies, and carbon dating. And yes, it explains many things, but not everything, because some findings defy the expected pattern. For example, the Nampa figurine, the tiny human-like statue found in Miocene rock in Idaho, was analyzed by geologists like John D. Whitney, who concluded that its depth and sedimentary context made hoax unlikely. And yet, science had no box to put it in, so it was quietly shelved. The metallic spheres from South Africa were found in the Ottosdal region and analyzed by researchers at the Klerksdorp Museum. While some claim they formed through natural geological processes, others highlight the precise grooves running around their equator, something nature rarely does, especially in rock dated 2.8 billion years old. Then we have the Paluxy River tracks, which sparked huge debates in the 20th century. Some geologists dismissed them as erosion patterns, while others like Dr. Carl Baugh argued they bore the clear anatomical structure of human feet. Radiometric testing in the area did reveal Mesozoic age strata, but the presence of both human-like and dinosaur tracks in close proximity remains controversial. Now, let's talk about the tungsten coils found in Russia. Tungsten has a melting point of over 3,400 degrees Celsius, far beyond ancient furnaces. How could such intricate metallic objects be present in sediment older than 100,000 years? Skeptics suggest they're remnants of missile testing or modern contamination. But no military bases were active in that region during the depth layer's estimated timeline. And then there's genetics. The human genome is about 3.2 billion base pairs long. Of that, nearly 98% is non-coding, often called junk DNA. But increasingly, scientists are realizing this junk may be more like dormant code waiting to be activated, or relics of something long forgotten. One of the most striking mysteries is the FOXP2 gene, known as the language gene. It appears almost suddenly in our evolutionary history, enabling complex speech. Chimpanzees, our closest relatives, share 99% of our DNA, but this single gene has critical differences. Why did it appear so abruptly and so perfectly? Some evolutionary biologists, like Dr. Eugene McCarthy, propose hybridization theories suggesting that humans may have arisen from a cross between an early hominid and another unknown species. One without a trace, one that may no longer exist. Now let's pause for a moment. Imagine you find a smartphone in a 5,000-year-old tomb. Your mind would shout, "Impossible," but your eyes would say, "It's there." That's how many scientists feel when they encounter these anomalies. They're not always hoaxes, they're data points. And real science isn't about ignoring the outliers. It's about asking, why do they exist? In short, the scientific community is divided. Some anomalies can be explained, others are still unresolved, and just a few remain in that shadowy space between the impossible and the unexplained. And that's where this chapter becomes truly forbidden. But the strange thing is, if these anomalies are real and many of them are documented, tested, even photographed, why aren't they in textbooks? Why aren't we taught about the Nampa figurine in school? Why has the Paluxy River evidence become taboo in academic circles? Why are the metallic spheres from South Africa dismissed with a shrug, despite no geological model that explains their grooves? The problem lies not in the lack of discovery, but in the limits of acceptance. Because science, for all its brilliance, is still a human endeavor. And humans don't like rewriting their story. We cling to what we know, to neat timelines, to structures that make us feel certain. Because to accept that something intelligent may have existed long before us is to accept that we are not the pinnacle, but perhaps just the latest chapter. And that idea, it terrifies some. Why would ancient cultures across the world, from Egypt to Mesoamerica to Mesopotamia, all describe knowledge being given to them by sky beings, star gods, or serpent kings? Were they just myth-making or preserving something older? Why do so many ancient megaliths use stone weighing hundreds of tons, far heavier than needed, and align perfectly with astronomical bodies we only recently measured with satellite precision? Why build with such difficulty unless they knew something we don't? Let's go deeper. Why does the Sumerian king list mention rulers who reigned for thousands of years before the flood? Why do Native American legends speak of star people who taught the ancestors before vanishing into the sky? And most hauntingly, why do so many cultures share flood myths? From the Epic of Gilgamesh to Noah, to Manu in India and Deucalion in Greece. All speak of a great deluge, a restart, a cleansing of the earth. But what if it wasn't just metaphor? What if something was wiped out? A lost civilization, a forgotten race, or something not entirely human? Why would ancient ruins like Göbekli Tepe be intentionally buried? And why, once uncovered, do they show knowledge astronomical, symbolic, and architectural so advanced it doesn't match the timeline of the people who supposedly built it? Why? The more you dig, the more questions rise, and each question threatens the comfort of the story we've been told. Are these just coincidences, misread data, hoaxes? Or is there a pattern emerging, a hidden signal behind the noise of accepted history? The deeper we go, the clearer it becomes. The standard model of human evolution might not be wrong, just too small. And perhaps it was never meant to contain the whole truth. What if these anomalies aren't isolated dots, but fragments of a larger picture? Because the deeper we look, the more we find echoes, patterns, resonances across space, time, and culture. And perhaps what we call myth is just memory and metaphor. Take Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, built over 11,000 years ago before writing, before agriculture, before the wheel. Massive T-shaped pillars, carved with animals, celestial symbols, and abstract figures. Not random, but aligned with the stars. Compare that to Nabta Playa, deep in the Sahara Desert, an ancient calendar circle aligned with the summer solstice, or to the megalithic temples of Malta, whose interior curves match the frequency of human vocal resonance structures designed not just to be seen, but felt. Go across the ocean to Teotihuacan in Mexico. Its pyramids mirror the layout of the Orion constellation, just like the pyramids of Giza. Civilizations separated by oceans, by millennia, building with the same celestial blueprint. Coincidence? Or shared memory? And then there's Puma Punku, high in the Bolivian Andes. Stone blocks cut with such mathematical precision that they rival laser machining today. Some corners form perfect 90-degree angles in andesite, one of the hardest stones on Earth. Yet the site is over 1,000 years older than the Inca. How? Some say it's ingenuity, others whisper inheritance. Inheritance of knowledge from a civilization lost to time. Ancient Vedic texts from India speak of yugas, cosmic ages where civilizations rise and fall, each more advanced than the last. Plato described Atlantis as a mighty empire destroyed by water, its memory passed through Egyptian priests. The Inca too claimed that their knowledge came from Viracocha, a bearded god who came from the sea and brought wisdom. Different cultures, same themes. Advanced knowledge, sudden arrival, cataclysmic end. Is it possible that before our recorded history, there existed a global civilization not modern, but advanced in its own way? One not measured in smartphones and satellites, but in resonance, astronomy, energy, and alignment? Think of it like this. If you erase a hard drive but leave behind fragments, you might recover pictures, names, but not the whole story. What if Earth is the hard drive, and these anomalies are the digital ghosts of a forgotten world? We see the traces but not the system. We see the ruins but not the builders. And maybe, just maybe, these weren't humans as we know them, but another branch of intelligence, one that rose, thrived, and fell long before our own. What if we're not the beginning of civilization, but the latest attempt? Across continents and millennia, from buried temples to sky-aligned stones, the puzzle begins to assemble itself. What once seemed like scattered curiosities now starts to look like fingerprints. Fingerprints left behind not by accident, but by design. A legacy not remembered but embedded. Think about it. What if Göbekli Tepe, Pumapunku, Teotihuacan, and even Stonehenge are not just architectural wonders, but beacons, coordinates, anchors of an older world map, each placed not randomly, but with cosmic precision? Their layout, their alignments, their acoustic properties hint at a forgotten knowledge system. One global in reach, one unified in intent. And here's the twist. Many of these sites align with each other across vast distances. Draw a line between the pyramids of Giza and the Nazca lines of Peru. Extend it further and you touch Easter Island, Angkor Wat, and Mohenjo-Daro. These sites form a near-perfect Great Circle path known as the Earth Grid hypothesis. Coincidence or cartography from a world we've lost? Even the myths seem to align. From the Hopis ant people who sheltered ancient humans underground during a global catastrophe, to the Dogon tribe in Africa who knew about Sirius B, a star invisible to the naked eye, only confirmed by Western science in the 20th century, to the Aboriginal Dreamtime stories that speak of sky beings shaping the earth with song and vibration. How do these pre-modern cultures know what they shouldn't have known? And here's something to consider. Every great story of civilization, Sumer, Egypt, the Maya, the Inca, starts not with primitive beginnings, but with a golden age. A sudden spike in knowledge, architecture, astronomy, and law, followed by decline. Why do civilizations begin with brilliance instead of building up to it? Could it be that each one is a restart, a reboot of an older system, a copy of a forgotten master plan? Now connect this with genetics, the sudden appearance of symbolic behavior, complex language, and even musical instruments among early Homo sapiens without a gradual lead-up defies standard evolutionary pace. It's as if something was introduced, inserted, activated. Are we the inheritors of a program? A living continuation of something begun long before recorded time? Perhaps what we call junk DNA is not junk at all, but commented out code, instructions that once served a different version of humanity, or another species entirely. What if the story of human evolution isn't a straight line? What if it's a spiral, rising, collapsing, rising again? Each time with fewer memories, each time more scattered, until all that remains are myths, monuments, and a haunting sense that something is missing. And now, we're standing at the edge of rediscovery. Let's pause, step back, take a breath. Because while these theories stir the imagination and ignite curiosity, real science demands evidence, skepticism, and balance. So let's put on the lab coat and step into the world of peer review, empirical testing, and Occam's razor. Many of the artifacts we've discussed have been scrutinized and not without controversy. Take the Paluxy River tracks. While some creationist researchers believe they were human footprints beside dinosaur tracks, further investigation by geologists revealed that many of the footprints were eroded dinosaur tracks or misinterpreted natural formations. Over time, even some of the original proponents of the human track theory revised their stance. The Nampa figurine? Critics argue that it may have been dropped into the borehole accidentally from the surface, perhaps during excavation. And while its detail is striking, skeptics suggest it could have been a 19th century artifact displaced by human error, plausible, though unproven. The metallic spheres of South Africa? Geologists explain them as limonite concretions, natural mineral formations that, under pressure and over time, form rounded shapes with striations. Nature, after all, can mimic precision, especially at scale, and over eons. Even the Dropa stones? There is no academic evidence that the artifacts ever existed outside the realm of pseudoscience. The story has been linked to a single article published in the 1960s, and no physical samples are available today for scientific examination. So, does that disprove everything? Not exactly. It reminds us that the boundary between fact and fantasy is fragile. And in the realm of ancient mysteries, both science and speculation can coexist but must be distinguished. For example, many out-of-place artifacts might result from misdating, misidentification, or modern contamination. Others might simply be stories that grew more mysterious over time. But here's where it gets interesting. Even within mainstream science, some questions remain. The sudden leap in symbolic thinking, the mysterious genetic changes in early Homo sapiens, the inexplicable engineering at places like Pumapunku and Baalbek, they still don't have satisfying answers. Evolutionary biologists admit that the Cambrian explosion, a period when life on Earth suddenly diversified, is still poorly understood. And the emergence of fully modern human behavior seems to appear in bursts rather than slow, linear progress. Psychologists also note our mind's tendency to recognize patterns even when none exist. It's called apophenia, seeing meaningful connections in unrelated things. A face in a cloud, a symbol in a crack of stone, a voice in the wind. Our ancestors may have done the same. Then there's pareidolia, our brain's habit of finding familiar shapes in randomness. Could ancient people have ascribed meaning to natural rock formations, later interpreted as carvings by modern eyes? And yet, the mystery endures. Because even as science attempts to explain, a small, persistent gap remains, a question unanswered, a whisper too faint to silence. Could we be projecting stories onto the unknown? Or are we just now catching the echo of a civilization too ancient, too strange, to fit neatly into our current frameworks? In the end, science doesn't claim to have all the answers. It thrives on questions. It refines itself. It evolves. And the most powerful thing science can say is not, we know everything, but we don't know yet. So now we return to the question we began with. What if the story of human evolution is missing a forbidden chapter? We've wandered through ancient ruins and strange artifacts, danced on the edge of science and myth, and heard whispers from stone, stars, and genes. And through it all, one thing becomes clear. There is more to the human story than we've been told. Maybe we are not the first sparks of intelligence to walk this earth. Maybe we are not the architects, but the inheritors. Not the peak, but a repeat. A remix of something older, something lost. And perhaps that loss is our greatest inheritance. Because if there truly was a forgotten civilization, a lost branch of intelligence, a spark that once lit the earth and was blown out by time, then we, the modern world, are walking on holy ruins. Every city we build, every language we speak, every formula we write on a blackboard might be an echo, faint but persistent, of minds that came before us. Not aliens, not gods, but perhaps something just as mysterious. Ancestors we never knew we had. And now, as we step into an age of AI, space colonization, and genome editing, perhaps we are standing on the very same precipice they once faced, the same promise, the same danger. Maybe the question isn't, who were they? But will we be remembered? Or will our chapter also be buried waiting to be rediscovered by someone or something else? We do not know, but we wonder. And in that wonder, in that deep ache to know who we are and where we come from, there is hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, history is not a closed book, but a living one. A story still unfolding, with pages yet to be written. So the next time you walk through a museum or look up at the stars, ask yourself, do we truly know who we are and where we came from? Or is that still waiting to be discovered?